We estimate that 2 million seabirds have died at the hands of European fishing vessels since the European Commission first promised to deal with this issue 10 years ago. How will the government work with its European colleagues to help to reduce this slaughter?
Well, I think you rightly describe it as a slaughter, and it's something that the UK government and I personally feel very strongly about. It's why we raised it, in fact, at the December Council as well. It was the UK that spoke up and said, we need this action plan in place and we need it as early as possible. And I'll be writing to the new commissioner as well, who's just come into post, to stress this particular point and why we need to see this plan put into place as soon as possible. So we'll keep on pushing very hard, and I would hope that we have allies there as well who would see this as an urgent, long overdue issue to be addressed.
The UK overseas territories host a third of the world's breeding albatrosses, many of which are facing extinction as the result of bycatch fisheries. And yet EU-flagged vessels are amongst the fleet which is taking an unsustainable toll of these birds. How will the government work with its European partners to find a solution to this threat?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, part of it is the European action plan that we've talked about. We need to get that in place early, and we need to make sure that that action plan extends not only to EU waters, but it's to all EU vessels, regardless of where they're fishing in international waters. That's the first point. But also, we don't only need to rely on that. We need to work through our partners in the international agreements we have on the conservation of albatrosses and petrels. We need to work through them, through down to the regional fisheries management organisations, wherever they may be, in every sea area. And you're right in describing this again. It's an absolute tragedy where we have vessels that are EU flagged that are causing some of the damage as well. So we need to tackle this at a number of levels.
Given the urgency of this threat, how quickly do you think emergency measures should be introduced?
As rapidly as we possibly can, and we're committed to this as well, and we don't have to wait for the long-term ambitions of an action plan and so on. We can actually do this practically ourselves. I think we can look at what we can do later on this year in the North East Atlantic protection and the OSPAR scheme. There's a meeting later this year, and we'd like to see that on the agenda for the Balearic species. But also, I think we can also look at what we can do with this particular species, recognising the threat that it faces around our own UK waters. And we are considering at the moment whether we could, for example, do something off our south coast, specifically domestically.
In other parts of the world, observer programs aboard fishing vessels are a vital way of collecting information on seabird bycatch and how it should be addressed. But there's no legal obligation in Europe for this sort of information to be collected. So how hard will you press for EU fishing regulations to be changed in order to collect this sort of information on seabird bycatch, where it's occurring and to what extent?
We'll push very hard because you rightly point out that we have deficiencies in the data. But I would say quite clearly, we should not allow deficiencies in data to stall any progress, either on the action plan or on any other measures we can do to tackle the impact that fishing is having on seabird populations.
Thousands of RSPB members have signed a pledge calling on the European Union to take swift, urgent and effective action to reduce seabird bycatch in its fisheries. Will you, Minister, join us in supporting this petition?
I will, and I just want to say in terms of the RSPB and its members and the other people as well who are signing this RSPB pledge, this is a help to a minister such as myself. The power of individual people to put pressure on myself, behind me, to do what we are doing is very, very welcome. So I'm more than happy to sign this pledge today.